He walked into the restaurant with the same cold confidence that had built his empire, every step measured, every breath controlled, every emotion locked behind the iron walls he'd spent years constructing. This was supposed to be his final blind date, the last favor to his persistent friends before he swore off love forever. But when he saw the girl sitting alone by the window, smiling at the rain as if the world had never heard her, something inside him shifted, cracked, and for the first time in years, the untouchable millionaire CEO felt his guarded heart stumble. Before we begin, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Tales and Turns. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We love hearing from our amazing global family. He paused at the doorway, staring at the girl who was supposed to be just another failed match. She wasn't dressed to impress, nor dripping in wealth like the dates he had been forced to meet before. Her dress was simple, soft, and her hair wasn't styled by a professional, yet she looked effortlessly beautiful, like someone who lived in her own peaceful world. As he approached her table, she looked up with a warm, genuine smile that disarmed him instantly. For a man who spent years reading faces for lies, manipulation, and ambition, her openness felt almost unreal. He sat down, expecting awkwardness, but instead found himself at ease. The first few minutes felt strange. He kept waiting for her to mention his money, his company, his status. Everyone always did. But she didn't. She asked him about his favorite books, the places he wanted to visit, the kind of music that calmed him after long workdays. It stunned him. Nobody ever cared about the men behind the empire. Her questions weren't rehearsed, they came from a place of genuine curiosity, as if she truly wanted to know him, not the legend he'd become. For the first time in years, someone saw him as human. As the date continued, her laughter filled the quiet corners of the restaurant. She wasn't trying to impress him, compete with him, or analyze him. She simply enjoyed being there. And that simplicity, so rare in his cutthroat world, felt strangely comforting. He found himself sharing stories he had never told anyone, about his childhood, his lonely climb to success, the promises he made that cost him friendships and love. She listened without judgment, her eyes soft with understanding. He'd never met someone who made silence feel safe. When they finished dinner, rain was falling harder outside. She hesitated at the door, unsure if she should ask him for a ride, not wanting to seem dependent or expectant. But he offered before she even opened her mouth. In the car, she rolled the window down slightly, letting the cool wind wash over her face. She closed her eyes with a small smile, as if the rain reminded her of something beautiful. He watched her, mesmerized. She wasn't like the women he'd met, those who wanted influence, fame, or access. She seemed whole on her own. And somehow, her presence made him feel less broken. When he dropped her off at her small apartment, she didn't cling to him or ask when she'd see him next. She simply thanked him for the evening, her voice genuine and soft. As she stepped out into the rain, she turned back and gave him a smile that lingered long after she walked inside. He sat there for several minutes, processing emotions he thought he'd buried, curiosity, longing, and something dangerously close to hope. The cold millionaire CEO wasn't used to feeling anything at all. Over the next days, he found himself thinking about her constantly. Her voice echoed in his mind during meetings, her smile appeared every time he paused to breathe, and her gentle presence lingered like a memory he didn't want to shake. He tried to distract himself with work, but nothing worked. It was as if she had slipped through the cracks of his armor and settled somewhere deep in the part of him he had long ignored. So he did something he never did, he reached out first. Their second meeting was even more natural than the first. She brought him homemade pastries because she remembered he mentioned missing the taste of his mother's cooking. Nobody had done something that thoughtful for him in years. They walked through the park, talking about everything and nothing, and he felt a strange warmth spreading through him, an unfamiliar comfort, a gentle peace. The man who controlled billion-dollar contracts suddenly found himself tripping over words he never used: fun, relaxed, happy. As their connection deepened, he learned parts of her story too. She had come from a quiet life, working simple jobs, supporting her family, and dreaming of a future filled not with wealth but with meaning. She didn't chase money, she cherished kindness. And when she confessed she almost skipped the blind date out of fear of disappointment, he felt his heart twist. He realized she had no idea how extraordinary she was. And for the first time in his life, he wanted to protect someone, not with money, not with power, but with sincerity. One night, they sat on a rooftop she loved, watching the city lights shimmer below. He felt a truth pressing against his chest, a confession he had never spoken aloud. With a voice softer than he intended, he told her. She had changed him. That before her, he lived in a world where emotions were weaknesses and relationships were distractions. But she, just by being herself, had reminded him that life was more than boardrooms and deadlines. That love wasn't a threat, it was a lifeline. She looked at him with surprise, then gentleness, and reached for his hand. In that moment, he knew he didn't want to lose her. Their journey didn't become perfect overnight. He had to unlearn years of cold habits, and she had to learn how to trust someone who lived in a world far different from her own. But they didn't give up. They walked through the differences, the fears, the challenges, together. And slowly, the man who once lived behind steel walls found himself laughing more, listening more, and caring more deeply than he ever thought possible. She had brought warmth into his winter, and he never wanted that warmth to fade. In the end, the cold millionaire CEO realized something simple but profound. She didn't change his life because she was extraordinary, she changed it because she reminded him how to feel, how to hope, and most of all, how to love again. She didn't chase his wealth, she touched his heart. And for a man who thought he had everything, he discovered he had been missing the one thing that mattered most, a person who saw him, believed in him, and stayed when he needed it most. And from that moment on, he knew this was the beginning of a love story that would change both their lives forever.